What is up, everybody? Welcome back. This week I'm talking about how in the past 3 weeks I've probably spent enough to buy a used F-150 on wood. And that's saying a lot because the price of used trucks is absolutely outrageous this year. But what I want to talk about tonight is what I did to buy all this lumber and how I went about it and how I saved us about 12% or about $4,000 on the whole package. And maybe if you're looking to buy this much lumber for a house build or some other big project, you can probably use the same technique and save yourself some cash as well. So first of all, the reason I'm buying this lumber so early when we don't even break ground on the house until March is because prices are starting to skyrocket again. They got absolutely outrageous in 2020. I don't want to be a victim of that this year, and I am willing to take the risk of buying them now while they're still mediocrely priced to avoid having to cope with either high prices or no availability this year when the building season is in full swing when it's warm out again. So I look at it as a bit of a risk mitigator strategy, and I'm lucky that we can store it safely to enable that. The first step in this process that everyone's gonna have to go through is figuring out the exact lumber you need. Sometimes that is on your plans. If you buy them from a plan website or something, it might come with a materials list that literally tells you how many 2x4s, how many 2x6s you need. But I drew mine myself, so I kind of had to figure out a material takeoff of my own. That came with watching a lot of YouTube videos and just learning exactly the pieces that go into the house. Counting all the studs in a 16 on center wall, how many feet of top plate, bottom plate, how many sheets of sheathing. You get the idea. Once I had this list put together in a simple table in Excel, all I had to do then was Google Map who all my suppliers were in a reasonable radius and start making phone calls. Phone calls lasted no more than 2 minutes. It basically went something like this. 84 Lumber, what's your project? Hey, good afternoon. I'm building a house and I need some lumber. Oh, great, we can help with that. How much you need? Well, a lot. And I actually have it all listed out in an Excel sheet. Is that all right if I just email it to you? That sounds fantastic. Here's my email address. Once I had their contact email, I would immediately follow up and send that Excel sheet. It was laid out fairly simply so that all they had to do is go line by line and give me their pricing on that item. Then it's a little bit of a waiting game. Some of them actually got back to me like next day if they weren't doing a whole lot. Some of them never got back to me at all, and then some of them took like a week or so. Here's the tough part. Because of today's crazy lumber market, these suppliers won't hold their quotes, some of them for like more than 5 business days. So in certain cases, I wasn't getting quotes back from other suppliers before the first ones were expiring. So that was a little bit of a juggling act, but I made it work in the end. Now, as I'm getting all this data back, I'm using an Excel again to essentially list these line items of lumber types versus the suppliers who are giving me prices, and I can see apples to apples who's giving me the best price on each one of these lumber items. So that part was a little tedious, entering all that data line by line, but this is where the real magic of Excel comes in. I used a tool called Conditional formatting. When you're looking at all this data side by side, it looks basically just like a bunch of numbers, and it's really hard to tell what's greater than what's less than what at first glance, and it would really give you a headache trying to figure that out. But Excel has this super handy trick where all you have to do is highlight a row of cells, click the conditional formatting tool, and it will put a gradient of color based on the value of the number. In my case, green, I wanted to be the lowest value and red the highest. I wanted to pay the low green prices and avoid the high red prices. Once I had done this across all the line items, things got pretty clear which suppliers I wanted to go with and which ones I wanted to avoid. But the beauty of having all this data is that I could pick and choose which suppliers I wanted to go with for which line items, because trust me, they varied a lot in which ones had the best prices on certain items. For example, for just a 4x8 sheet of subfloor, 23/32 subfloor, the lowest supplier came in at $38.72. The highest supplier came in at $58.39. And I'm multiplying that by 49 sheets. That's literally $1,000 difference in just one single line item. I basically did that analysis line by line all the way down and selected the certain items from each suppliers that had the best price and that I was going to go purchase. There were a couple situations where the best price supplier was just marginally better than the next one, and that was the only good that they had on the whole list, where the next best one I was already getting 20 things from, so it wasn't really worth the special trip to save like $5 on a single light item to go drive out of my way and pick that up. So those things I kind of Just used some common sense on selecting. Some things that was an absolute no-brainer though. There were certain line items like the subfloor where $1,000 difference, of course I'm gonna go make a special trip to save $1,000. Or even things that had like $150, $200 difference on the same thing. It was worth it to me to bundle that with a couple other things from the same supplier and just do a separate trip to that supplier. Now this is worth repeating. I had to act fast. These quotes will not stand the test of time, and in fact most of them expired between 1 and 2 weeks after I got the quote. So I basically had to get on the phone with these suppliers almost right away, explain to them exactly what I was buying from them from that quote, and get that order locked in. What made this even more interesting is simultaneously I'm working with the engineer to kind of like finalize all the structural plans on our house, which does affect the lumber takeoff a little bit. So there were certain things I had to go back and revise my quantities on, or add new line items and reach out to suppliers to get more quotes. So it got a little bit complicated and a little bit hairy at times, but overall I am super happy I did this because I saved us like 12.4% on our lumber costs, which when we're spending the price of a used truck on our lumber framing package, just the framing lumber by the way, and the deck lumber, that's a huge amount of money. In our case, that's $4,000. That's basically in our pocket just with the help of a little bit of data entry and some Excel analysis. Was it a little bit of a pain going to several suppliers? I think I actually am using a total of 5 different suppliers for various items. Yes, but for $4,000, I'm willing to combine some work commutes with a trip to a lumber supplier here and there. It was not a big deal at all. Another really key discovery I made while I was going through this whole process was actually while I was standing at Home Depot ordering a lot of this lumber, a lot of the engineered stuff anyway. Pro tip, stay away from Home Depot's dimensional lumber unless you're buying it in bulk and it's coming straight off the truck, because it's already been picked through by a million people and it's going to be horrible. Back to the point. I'm standing at Home Depot's Pro Desk and I look up and I see the sign above the door. Nobody beats our prices, guaranteed. If they go lower, we'll beat it by 10%. When I saw this, I raised a bit of an eyebrow because there were certainly things on my full list that other suppliers were lower than the Home Depot quote on. So I thought that if Home Depot would take that price and then take 10% off of it, that's a substantial amount of savings. So I get into this and I actually found an associate who started to help me do all this, 10% off the next best price. Of course, he got COVID and then stopped coming into work, so I basically had to start the whole process over again. And then the next associate I found basically showed this super fine print under that thing that says it's not eligible for bid room items, which all of my lumber kind of falls into. However, they had this sign hung like 20 feet up. I didn't even notice that there was fine print on the sign at all when I first saw it. I was basically able to negotiate my way into a few of those items. I was able to get the discount on, some of them I wasn't. But they would still at least match the competitor's price, so I could conglomerate the orders for all my engineered lumber is what I got through Home Depot. So that's a trick you should use too. They will definitely honor that on things like, I don't know, screws, nails, insulation, things that are not a commodity item that you order in these massive bulk quantities. And over the duration of a construction project, that kind of stuff adds up. I have one more tip that I use to get some money off of my lumber bill. And if Dave Ramsey ever happens to see this video, he's going to laugh at me.
Well, probably ought to do some more research than that.
But it is this. Credit cards. I have a ton of credit cards. I'm a credit card schemer. I love taking advantage of these cashback deals where these credit card companies are literally giving money back to you, and as long as you follow the rules, there's no penalty whatsoever. It's free money, in my opinion. So needless to say, I put every single dime of these lumber purchases on cashback credit cards. They're all between 1 and 2% cashback. Some have intro offers that are more than that, and I think that helped quite a bit. I think over the whole run, I think it's going to be like $500 or $600 I get back from that. Just to name a couple of them, the Home Depot credit card I just signed up for, that was $100 back on an order of 1,000 or more, which was easily surpassed with my order. Capital One Quicksilver, 1.5%. My City Double Cash, 2%. I think I used like 6 different cars throughout this whole order, and it kind of makes up for a third of my sales tax that I paid for all this stuff. So it's not really free money, but at least lowers my effective tax rate on all of this lumber. So those are my tips on how I saved us over $4,000 off of our lumber package. If you would like to see this exact spreadsheet that I use with my actual pricing, what I paid for the package as a whole, we have that information available to our VIP members on Patreon, so feel free to head over there and check it out if you'd like to see it. Of course, follow us on Instagram at Mason Dixon Acres. Elena posts a ton on there, and then that's going to include pretty much daily updates of construction progress. We break ground in like 2 months. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next week.